Good morning. Welcome to our expert overview of the logistics and industrial real estate sector in Myanmar. My name is Paul Volodarsky. I'm the deputy head of our regional real estate practice. And today we're going to have a very interesting discussion with my colleague, Nar Wah. But first, let me do a brief introduction of DFDL. DFDL is a international law firm with a regional presence around Southeast Asia and a focus on the developing markets of Southeast Asia and South Asia. We have offices in 9 countries and 12 offices within those countries. But for today, we're going to be focusing on Myanmar, which we get a lot of questions. I myself have worked across the region. I've worked primarily in the real estate sector with a big focus on the logistics market as it is expanded, especially post-COVID. And I'd love to introduce my colleague Nar Wah, who will be our expert today. So Nar Wah, can you give us a brief introduction of yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nar Wah, and I'm a senior legal advisor based in DFDL Myanmar office. So I focus on the real estate and other sectors such as oil and gas, energy, and the logistics sector, and so on. Thank you very much for joining today.
Okay, great. Well, it's great to have you, and I'm glad that we're able to connect today. So why don't we get right to it? We have a lot of questions and not a lot of time. So I know one of the big questions that we get are, what are the legal and due diligence considerations to be taken into account when entering the logistics and industrial real estate market in Myanmar? And please help elaborate on how that might have changed earlier this year.
Actually, it is very highly dependent on what exact type of business activities that the foreign investor want to carry out in Myanmar. To consider what are the legal and due diligence considerations. For example, whether the projects include development of the infrastructures or only providing logistics services. It is very broad, such as whether the investor are the construction service providers, real estate developers. That include bonded warehouse. Is that the export-import distribution centers or other logistics services? So regardless of the business activities, it is very important to consider the restrictions and requirements under the Myanmar investment law, because this is the key law for the investment in Myanmar. So the investment law provide basic rules such as which activities are fully open to foreign investor, and which activities which require local joint venture partner with the local partner, and which activities are restricted for foreign investment. Apart from the Myanmar investment law, it is very important also to comply with the specific law if there is. So there are some related law in this sector, such as transportations, communications, the estate development, trading, and land-related laws. Those need to be compliant with. So sometimes, apart from the laws, the practices requirement for to obtain the governmental approval is very important as well. So the most common issues, that investor might face in this, industrial real estate and logistics sector is the long-term land use rights restrictions. So foreign investors are restricted, to have long-term lease. That means a lease would have a lease time more than 1 year. But it can be granted under long-term lease to investor by obtaining an MIC permit. So under the MIC permit, the foreign investor can get a 50 years lease, and with the possibility of 2 extensions for 10 years each. So the land Myanmar have, so many type of lands, such as some specific land that cannot be used for the industrial purpose without being converted. Some, for example, farmland, which is not can be, which cannot be used for the industrial purpose without being converted, and the approval from the Central Land Management Committee or the, related state and regional government department. So, for example, foreign investor might came into the Myanmar without having an MIC permit. For example, service company, they don't grant, they are not granted for an MIC permit, and then they think they can get long-term lease, right? And then they just sign a long-term lease agreement with the landowner, and the landowner doesn't know that whether he can lease the land in long-term basis to the foreign investor without an MIC permit. So that can be an issue and also some foreign investor, they came into Myanmar and they just lease a land, and then they just sign long-term lease agreement. Even they have an MIC permit, they didn't do a land due diligence properly, and then when they are doing the financing, they are obtaining financing, then the vendor due diligence came in, and then they find out that the land lease agreement is not bankable because of the land that leased for the project is not converted for industrial purpose. So this issue has to be aware.
Okay, thank you very much. It sounds like there's a lot of tricky situations that developers can get themselves into without understanding the land use rights that they're actually acquiring in order to do this kind of development project, and the licensing that they're required to have. But moving on to our next question, what are some of the practical considerations that investors need to be aware of when entering the market?
So in practice, as I mentioned earlier, that there is no one of list of license and approvals requirement template for any specific project. So the investor, they need to go through every related laws and every related governmental departments to inquire what they need to do and what license and approvals they really need to get for operations of the project. So in practice, apart from the MIC permit, there are a lot of there may be a lot of license stay required. For example, the approval from the line ministries, the approval from the state and regional government and such, and also the business operations license. There are different type of operation license in Myanmar, so that need to be taken in considerations, and for not to prevent the project. For preventing the projects from delaying, that they need to consider before entering into the market, which should be obtained first, and the procedures and process have to be clear to the investor.
Okay, great. And I think one of the big questions that has come up a lot when talking to investors is, what are some of the legal changes that we've seen in Myanmar that are affecting the logistics and industrial market? Has there been any legal changes, especially this year, that you can share with us?
So since 2016, there have been no major changes to the law which affect the logistics and industrial real estate sector. We do not see any major changes. Yeah.
Okay, so basically at this point, we haven't seen any major shifts in the legal framework for doing or conducting an industrial or real estate sector investment in Myanmar at this time. Is that right?
Yes, at this time it is very how to say, it is not stable yet, but in Myanmar there are a lot of opportunities in future. this situation will not be last forever.
Okay, so then I guess that brings us to our final question in this discussion, which is looking into your crystal ball, where do you see the Myanmar logistics and industrial real estate market going in the coming years?
So to forecast the growth and the level of investment in this sector is very highly dependent on how the related authorities manage the political risks in the coming years. So in addition, the COVID-19 situation has become one of the most important factors when forecasting the growth and the level of investment as well. Nevertheless, during the pandemic, there is a fast growth in online retail market due to the COVID-19. People becomes, more dependent on the online market and logistics services. The logistic market in Myanmar is very young right now. So there are a lot of, local players and some, foreign players here. But, the new investor can bring in more, new products and new trends of investment here. So there are a lot of opportunities. Even though there are some supply chains, distributions, because of the political and disrupted, it's not forever, and this logistic and investment industrial real estate sector is going to boom in some stage. So hopefully very soon in these modern days.
Okay, that's great to hear, and I think we might have a little bit more time in this discussion. I just wanted to follow up with you on, maybe you can give us just a brief update on how business is going at the moment in Myanmar.
Yeah, actually, frankly speaking, due to the political and the pandemic situation here, most of the business they are on hold, or some they want to assist, but some they are ready to come into the Myanmar. The political situations here, I believe, will not be last for long. And most of the investors, they are intend to enter into the market at this stage, and they are preparing and ready, I think, except those some business they are on hold. They are waiting for to see what will happen in the next years.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing generally in terms of inquiries, is clients that are looking at how to navigate the market in the current circumstances and looking at potential opportunities that may be arising. So I think that that's a good place for us to stop at this point. I don't think we have any room left for questions for this discussion, but if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We have our email addresses on the screen. You can contact either myself or Nar Wah for your questions relating to Myanmar. We would be happy to answer, especially on the logistics and real estate side, but please feel free to reach out if you have any other inquiries as well. And we look forward to welcoming you back for our next discussion. Thank you and have a great morning. Also, please fill out our survey. Let us know what you think of this discussion, and please also feel free to send us your comments on additional topics that you would like to have us discuss in future sessions. Thank you again. Have a great morning.